Hello everyone. Welcome to Useless Workshop Space. Today, our awesome guest is Claudio Murario, CEO and co-founder of Inner Trends. We have such a fascinating topic for today. I'm honestly thrilled to learn if there is the one metric for user onboarding, because we've been always like we just had a customer health score workshop, and it was all about having multiple scores. Now we talk about the one. So, Claudio, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you very much, Jane. And I'm really excited to be here because there are a few companies out there that I know that focus so much on customer data, especially at account level and company level data. So I'm really excited to do this together with you. And yes, today we'll be talking about one metric that we find crucial for pretty much every data strategy, every growth strategy out there. And indeed, after working with hundreds of SaaS businesses, very small and enterprises, businesses that have just a few signups to tens of thousands of signups a month, the same thing emerged. And that's what I'm going to present to you today. So I'm really excited.
Amazing. Let's put you on stage. Yes, let's get your slides up there, and let's do it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jane. So yes, we'll be talking today about the one metric for user onboarding. So what is
Claudio,
the
one technical interruption? Apologies for not doing it front. For our listeners today, we're going to do the presentation, roughly 20-25 minutes, and then there will be Q&A. So if you have any questions, welcome to drop them in the side panel with the questions, and we will go through them afterwards. That's it on my side, Claudia. Sorry for interrupting.
No, I'm really happy you did that because yes, anyone having any questions, please add them to the questions. I'll keep an eye on that as well. So if I can address them while doing my presentation, I'll gladly do that. If not, we'll just address them at the end. So thank you very much, Jane, for that. So let's get started. As I mentioned, I'm the founder of Inner Trends, which is a product analytics solution designed to make it very easy for product managers, product marketers find insights in their data through the help of pre-built product analytics reports. And as I said, what I'm going to present today is the result of our work with hundreds of SaaS businesses and their processes in structuring their data and getting to dive deep into it to find the insights they need. Now, at Inner Trends, we work a lot with what we call customer journey metrics. And today we are going to focus on one stage of the customer journey metrics, that is the onboarding stage. There are 5 pillars: acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. You probably have heard about them. They are also called the Pirate metrics. For the pillars, we have defined stages. And as I mentioned, today we are focusing on one of those stages, but it's one stage that we find critical because it is linked to all the other stages of your customer journey metrics. So it all starts with a promise. Your website, your social media, your ads, newsletter, everything you communicate, every message you push out there into the world about your product is about a promise that you make to your people, to your audience, trying to get them to sign up for your service. When that promise meets the visitor's needs, that's when they consider sign up. So like in the case of Inner Trends, we promise our users or our audience that it will be much easier for them to find insights in their data. So that's our promise. And that promise is crucial to the framework of finding that metric, because that's how we define the onboarding process of a SaaS product. The process that takes a user from the moment of creating their account to the moment of experiencing the promise of your product for the first time. So onboarding is not about a user guide, is not about some email sequence that you do or something that you put flashy on your on your home screen when somebody logs in. We see onboarding as that specific process that takes people to that promise, because that promise is linked to the value that you give to your users. That promise makes people say, hey, I want that. That's something that I actually need, and I'm very excited to get that. So that's why they sign up to your product, to get to that promise. And that's why we consider the onboarding process to finish the moment when they experience that promise for the first time. Now, experiencing the promise for the first time doesn't necessarily mean somebody gets value from your product. It only means that they know from their own experience what your product does. It's not from marketing materials. It's not from what other people say, but it's from their own experience. And without reaching that point, it's almost impossible to grow, because if they don't know how your product works, how can they get to value? Value that, again, is linked to that promise. Now, the promise of your product is the biggest heading of on your homepage. That's how you find it. On your landing pages, on your ads, that's where you go and take that copy there, and we'll do a couple of simulations in just a bit to go through a couple of businesses to see how we define that promise from that heading. Now, the reason I love this methodology is that your website is all about acquisition. So you put messages out there, and those messages get people excited, some of them, others not so excited. And you always try to get to that message that gets the most excitement and gets people to sign up. Now, when you change that message, you will actually have a huge impact on your onboarding process. From all our data, everything we ever analyzed, the thing that impacts the onboarding process the most is the message that you put on your homepage. Go with the correct message that is going to create the correct expectations of what people should expect when they sign up. That's when you'll have a higher onboarding rate. It's not only about the email guides or the product guides or the email sequences or the optimizations in the product. Those are crucial, but that alignment, if that's not there, they will not fix that problem. So let's get through a couple of examples. PandaDoc, a known product out there for managing documents that you need to send, especially for signing documents. Now, the reason I want to give you these examples is the promise. Whenever you make a promise on your homepage, you try to do it in a shiny way. You'll come and say a text, something, a copy, something like, finally, enable your fast-moving teams with a simple, sophisticated, all-in-one solution to easily manage the creation, editing, and signing of documents. Now, the promise there, you just take all that fluff and all the shiny elements that are important for marketing, but what people expect is to create, edit, and sign documents. That's what they need to do in order to experience the promise. Will it be sophisticated? Will it be simple? That's for them to judge. But you need to get them.
I like it how they say simple and sophisticated together.
Yes, that's beautiful.
It's amazing.
That's very beautiful indeed. And but I always do this exercise, and I know whenever I do it with companies, it's almost scary to take out all the adjectives or anything that's not core to what your product does. And their promise is you are going to create, edit, and sign documents, as simple as that. And something that's very important here, especially for smaller companies, when you are a very well-known brand, you can actually get away without putting the promise explicitly on your homepage, because it's implicit. Like, people know that promise from their peers, they know it from others. So they don't need to read it, it's already in their mind. So even if you don't put it there, their mind already has it. But if you are not a big brand, you need to put it out there, because otherwise people will not know what that promise is. Let's go to the next one, which is Trello. Yes, helps teams move work forward. collaborate, manage projects, and reach new productivity peaks. From high rises to the home offices, the way your team works is unique. Accomplish it all with Trello. Manage projects with your team. And that's very, very strong, because manage project is something that I can understand, and with my team is something I can understand. So you need to do this exercise. Do not change the copy of your headline or your messaging on your homepage, but do extract what is that promise that you are giving to your users. And what I've seen is, and it's even from our experience, when that promise is easy to extract, it's probably you are doing a good job on acquisition, and you also have a good onboarding rate. When that promise is not easy to extract, you struggle. And it's so easy to see that in the data. Textamol, this is a smaller company. You probably did not hear about them, but I did like how they put their promise. So they come with a big, bold statement: keep people informed when it matters most. Okay, but that can mean many, many things. So when you go through the subheading, we deliver personalized information and emergency text messages and phone calls fast. So they deliver text messages and phone calls. That's what they do. That's the promise. You need to do and experience that, and you'll decide, hey, is it personalized? Was I able to do an emergency text? Do they live up to that promise? So the one metric that matters the most for onboarding is the number of users that experience the promise of your product for the first time. And as we've seen here, is you first do the exercise of defining that to the core of what it is, and to validate it for you that you've done it well. The promise will always have a verb and a noun. Deliver text messages. Yeah, that's something that can be tracked. That's what you want to know. You cannot track personalized information in an emergency. That's not something you can track, but you can track deliver text messages. That's an action that you can track. So the number of people that experience those events for the first time are what define your last step of the onboarding process. And it's the most important metric for most companies, especially in their growth stage. Not getting that right will get a lot of noise in your data, and it will make your analysis very, very difficult. So let's go to the next part on how do you optimize the road to the promise. The first thing you need to do is define your onboarding funnel. And the onboarding funnel, we have a very strict way of dealing with it. And we really like this strict way because it's not debatable. It's very easy to defend in a team meeting or with all the organization around you. So what are the technical requirements for a user to be able to experience the promise of my product? Yes, if my promise is I'm going to send text messages or deliver phone calls, what does somebody need to do in order for them to be able to do that? Well, they need to create an account. They need to connect a phone number. They need to write a message and send it. Those are the technical requirements. None of them can be missing. Yes, you can have many other things around them, but we always define the onboarding funnel as only the technical requirements, because we want to know at what technical requirement we get people stuck. And after that, we analyze what happens in between. So the next step is the onboarding funnel analysis. So after we've defined the technical requirements to get to experience the promise for the first time, we build the funnel. And it's crucial to have a cohort funnel. It's very, very important. It's something that it took us, as I was discussing with Jen at the beginning, building data product is very complicated, and cohorts are usually at the core of those things making them very complicated. So typically, when you build a funnel in any product analytics tool, you're going to go and select a period. Let's say last month, like December 2021. And the tool will give you, the query will give you the how many people went through each step in that period. Well, a cohort funnel works in a different way. When I'm going to select a period, it will only give me the accounts created in December, but every other step, it's up to now. So if somebody of those people finished the onboarding process, experienced that promise 1 second ago, they will show up as onboarded in your cohort funnel. And that's what you want, because you want a true, an accurate image of your onboarding funnel. And here, that's what you need to do. Once you have the cohort funnel, you need to look at the step where you are losing most users or most accounts in that funnel. And again, something very important here, especially for B2B companies, the cohort funnels, especially in the onboarding process, should be account-based, not user-based. Because somebody could create an account, a very different person might finish the onboarding process. You don't want to target the first user telling them you did not connect your phone number or you did not connect your email provider when one of their peers did. So onboarding funnels, we always recommend to do them at company level or account level. So let's go to the third step. Because right now we know we have the onboarding funnel. We know what a technical requirement we are losing most users. And here is where things start to get very interesting. The first analysis we always do when we look at that stage is what influences users to go from one technical requirement to the other. And we always split data into 3 buckets. Actions that are specific to successful users. So we see in their behavior that those that did those actions, or the people that completed the next step did those actions much more than those that didn't. Actions that are specific to drop-offs, the other way around. So people that abandoned were more likely to do some events, and actions without impact. And typically, this is how a report looks like when we analyze it. And this is very, very powerful because this tells us what we need to do next in order to have success. So we typically design product guides around this data. We look at actions specific to accounts that reach the next step. And we say, hey, we need to get more people through that path, because if they do that, I believe they are much more likely to finish the onboarding process or to get to the next step in this case. Again, actions that are specific to accounts that drop off, the same thing. Hey, what's happening there? Maybe I should do a product guide to get people back on track because they got lost there. The same with emails. Now, this report can give you a lot of ideas on what emails you should be sending during the onboarding process, because you know which elements of your product are more likely or are specific to people that are more likely to finish the onboarding process. So that's how we address a big drop-off from one technical requirement to another towards that promise. Now, we also go into how long it takes to reach the promise of your product. Now, this report is very important, and it's very important how you analyze that data. Typically, what you can do is you go and take what's the time difference between account creation and experiencing the promise of my product for the first time. And you'd be inclined to do an average there. Don't, because that average will probably describe 1 or 2 users or 1 or 2 accounts from your database, and it's not going to be relevant. What we discovered is in 90% of the cases, it looks like a long tail distribution. Yeah? A lot of people with common behavior, and then people that are all over the place, taking their own time to finish the onboarding process. So we look at the average of the accounts with common behavior, like in this example, we have 7 hours is the common behavior for people to finish the onboarding process. And then we look at the outliers. In this case, we have outliers taking more than a day and almost a half. So typically, after that time, it's an outlier, somebody that's a weird behavior. You don't want the outliers to affect your average, and that's why you don't create an average of all your data. This report is very powerful because it tells you when you should trigger your emails. Like if in the previous step we discovered what we should put in the emails, at this step we start to discover what's a very good moment to start targeting emails. Definitely not in the first 7 hours. That's when people are in their element and it's normal for them to take that time to finish the onboarding process. After 1 day, after 1 day and a half, you should target them with as many emails as possible because the chances are they'll stop in the process. They're already outliers. It's nothing common in their behavior. So 2 things we do always with the email. We compare them with our expectations. So my product should only take 15 minutes to finish the onboarding process. Like, why does it take 7 hours? What's happening there? That's why we always report step by step as well. And after you compare it with your own expectations, you need to assess where you need to intervene. Do I need to take that time smaller? Or do I need to actually let people in their own rhythm and only try to tackle the outliers? That's something that you should analyze and look into. Last but not least, measure the influence of your email channel during the onboarding process. So pretty much every business out there will send emails during the onboarding process. And if you've never heard of UserList, do go check them now because they are a great tool to do that. You'll be sending emails during the onboarding process, preferably account-based, trying to get people to experience that promise. Now, we have this pre-built report that proved to be very powerful to our users. Typically, when you send an email, you'll have an audience of people that will receive an email. A percentage of them will open the email and you'll have the open rate. And then another percentage of them will convert. And you look at that conversion rate and say, yay, my emails are doing really good. I have good conversion rate on the people that open those emails. But what do you compare it with? If you compare it with your overall conversion rate, that would be probably wrong. So we always compare it at InnerTrends with the conversion rate of the people that received the email. So they were targeted, they were in the same behavior, but did not open and still converted. And like we see here, we have a 14% conversion from opened email to onboarded, and a 10% conversion from did not open email and onboarded. So that means the email campaigns are actually having a strong impact on them finishing the onboarding process. If people open the email, are more likely to finish that onboarding process. It's not always the case. It's under 10% the percentage of companies that we've seen that have a significant impact on people opening the emails and people not opening the emails. And without having this information, they don't know what to optimize. So we only saw a very small minority of companies with a negative impact, typically the ones that send promotional emails for offers during the onboarding process. I did not experience the promise and you already give me a discount. We've seen situations where people opening those emails were less likely to finish the onboarding process, but that's a minority. The big majority is almost no impact. But then there are the companies that have huge impact. Like this is a 40% increase between opening an email and not opening the email. So that's very, very strong. So yes, just as I mentioned, focus on the people that receive, open, and convert compared with those that don't receive, don't open, and convert to get that positive impact or no impact or negative impact. As benchmarks, at InnoTrends, we look at 40 to 60% of the accounts that sign up to experience the promise of a product for the first time or get onboarded, because that's what we use for the definition of the onboarding process for B2B companies with free trial or freemium. For B2C, that rate is a bit smaller, 40 to 50%. But we did see companies with onboarding rates of over 80%. And typically what they do great is create the right expectations before people sign up. Have the correct promise, tell them how to get there. So when they sign up, it just flows naturally.
I'd like to highlight, this is not trial to paid conversion. This is the percentage of people experiencing the value, the promise.
Yes, exactly that. Another counter example I'd like to give here is, sometimes we've seen companies when they've seen this framework and they say, oh, I'm going to cheat the system. I'm going to have people experience the promise of my product immediately after they sign up. So there was this search engine optimization tool, and the promise was that they will give you, basically you'll find rankings for your products and so on. And technical requirements were that you need to add some keywords, and then you need to analyze them, and you'll find the insight that you need. And a lot of people were stuck at finding the right keywords, and they were dropping off at that technical requirement. And they said, oh, we're going to cheat. We're going to put the right keywords automatically for the user there. So people simply got stuck at the next step because they did not get the process. You do not cheat this. You just need to communicate and create the right expectations. With the wrong expectations, no matter what you do in your onboarding process, you'll not match what's in the user mind. So it's almost a lost battle. I think it's very, very important to emphasize on creating the right expectations before people sign up. Now, when is that promise experienced? Again, from our data, 60 to 80% of all the people, all the accounts, to be more correct, that experience the promise do it before a trial hit limit. So that's quickly after they create an account, that's the first thing they want to do. They want to experience that promise. We do see the situation where 20 to 30% experience that promise after trial hit limit, especially with bigger accounts. Like they come, they create an account, they want to experience the promise, they have their own timeline, then trial hit limit hits. There are two options there. You either force them to upgrade in order to experience the promise. If that promise is very strong, they'll probably do that. If it's not, they'll cancel. Or you can make the trial longer in order for them to experience the promise and then ask them for money. But we also have a situation of 10 to 15% of the accounts that reach the promise that do it after they pay. Now, if somebody paid and did not experience the promise of your product, and we've validated this with many companies, they will not renew more than 2 times, like 1 time or 2 times most, and they stop. And that's all about experiencing that promise. It's probably the lowest hanging fruit you can have in your data. How many people paid, did not experience the promise? Let's go call them. We don't need to ask them for money. We just need to help them, and they'll be very happy about it. Just one last part of benchmarks. Typically, onboarding takes hours or days at most. For most companies is in the hours or even minutes. Upgrading takes days or weeks. The beautiful part of this is that the correlation between experiencing the promise and upgrading is very high. When experiencing the metric of how many people experience the promise goes up, your upgrading goes up. but you have hours to analyze that. And if you base your advertising campaign on how many experience the promise and not how many are going to upgrade 2 weeks from now when the trial finishes, you'll actually have the exact same results, but you'll be much faster. The customer journey metrics that I showed you at the beginning, it's a free tool that you can try with InnoTrends, and it's a wizard that will try to have you come define your promise, but then once you generate the customer journey metrics, you can actually play with it in order to create that onboarding funnel. It's an absolutely free tool. You can simply go to innotrends.com/customer journey map and go through it to generate it for your business. So yes, we got to the questions part. I went a bit faster at the end because I think I went over time a bit, but we are ready to take some questions. Let me quickly go to the questions tab.
Thanks so much for the great insights. I'm so excited to see actual data related to the effectiveness of email, for example, and other things. So really cool stuff. One question from Carson is, am I wrong to believe that onboarding starts before people visit your website and or sign up? It really starts when they first interact with your brand, such as paid ads, organic content, etc. How can you see which traffic sources drive users to reach their onboarding goal? Basically, attribution.
Attribution, yes.
Attribution.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
That's a very good question. Like on a philosophical level, you're right. Onboarding starts from the very first interaction with your brand, from seeing your ad, from hearing about your business, and so on. So, but when you start to work with data, you need to structure it, and that's why we use the Pirate Metrics model. We look at acquisition that starts from discovering your website, from the first visit to your website to the moment an account is created. And then activation starts from the account creation to finishing the onboarding process and then repeating that promise more. And then retention goes again on the promise to create a habit of getting to that promise. So that's something I did not include in my presentation. The first time you hit the promise, it's onboarding. The second time or the fifth time, it's an activation goal. And then when you do it on a regular basis, it's a habit. That's how we define all of this. And that's what you want to do. Experience the promise of your product on a regular basis. That's the only goal of your business, to get people to do that. So to get back to you, Carsten, on this, when we structure data and when you structure data, I recommend doing the same. So we look at marketing attribution from visit to account creation. But because we have account creation common between acquisition and activation, we can take that attribution further. So we can look at the marketing channel and report how many accounts are created for each marketing channel. And then for each marketing channel, what's the onboarding rate of those accounts created. And I highly recommend you to do that, because that's the proof you will get that the messaging in your campaigns is the strongest impact on your onboarding rate. This is something, again, from our experience. We've seen a lot of companies focus on optimizing their onboarding process. And they put teams on it, and they put research, and they do customer interviews, and they get amazing improvements of 10%, 15%, 20% of their onboarding rate by working on the UX or the product guides or the emails. But we've seen companies change their messaging and double their onboarding rate without touching the product. So it's a battle between that promise, and that's what in the report where you do marketing channel, account creation, onboarding rate, that's where you see it. You will always have very big differences in onboarding rates between marketing channels. That's the proof that your message creates the expectations and has the biggest impact on onboarding rates.
Another question from Delia. I am serving several roles and industries. Can my product have multiple promises?
In theory, yes. And whenever we see that, we say we recommend looking at them as multiple products because everyone will have a different onboarding process. But in practice, it's very rare. We see companies that come and say, exactly like Delia is saying, I'm serving multiple industries or roles. But when you get to the bottom of it, when you take all the shiny words and everything, your product does only one thing at its core for all those industries, for all those roles. That's what it does. And that's one promise. But yes, there are tools out there, especially in the search engine optimization suits, like where I can come and the promise I respond to is I'm going to analyze my competitors, while somebody else comes and say the promise I'm responding to is I'm going to focus on my own keywords. Like those are almost very different, and even in those products there are different tools inside. Or like we have what's the name of the company? I forgot it. Zoho. Yes, Zoho has, it's a big company, has everything. Well, every individual product has one promise. It's not one promise for Zoho, it's a promise for every individual product. Yes, you can buy all of them in a bundle, but those are different promises, different products, different onboarding process. So it's very rare that this happens. For most companies, it's one promise.
Okay, question for me. Can the promise be experienced as a done for you thing versus experienced by the customer themselves? Can you jump on a onboarding call with them, log into their account, do something on their behalf, and call it activation?
While I've seen it happen, I'd say a big no. So it's a conflict there. The reason is, okay, it happens with very large and enterprises companies where they understand, they have the technical mind, and yes, you navigate for them, you do it for them, and they say, wow, yes, that's what I need. Yeah, just click that button. But what happens there is the next time they need it, they still call you. And that's fine for enterprise clients. They have an account, dedicated account person doing that for them. It's fine. It's okay. But for self-service, experiencing, it's crucial. That part is because the promise is about making me better. I love that image with Super Mario where what makes Super Mario strong is your product. You want to make me strong. I need to feel strong by using the product, and I cannot feel strong if you've done it for me. I can also say it from experience. InnerTrends was not self-service a couple of years ago. And when we would introduce people to their accounts, they would be like all the wows and everything was there. But then we start getting emails, hey, how did you do that? I cannot do it myself now. And we always need to follow up. While when we switch to self-service, that doesn't happen anymore. Like they did by themselves, and it's very empowered. You empower them when they experience that promise and they reach to it through their own power. Yeah.
I want to share an experience I had maybe 3 years ago, something when Superhuman was a big thing, and I got on a call with them, and they had it really well defined. They forced me. I can't find a better word. They forced me to share my inbox and make a few keyboard strokes and stuff in real time with my emails, which I felt horribly awkward about. Yes, I did that, but it was by no means like self-motivated or like thoughtful or anything. So didn't work
and I
for
know,
me that time.
I know Superhuman, and it worked for them. But we don't know many companies that replicated them. It's very difficult to do it otherwise. They had a secret sauce for it. It worked well for them. You did feel awkward. I remember that call as well very much. But I think it was a lot of peer pressure from the industry, everybody using it, that you were willing to go over that awkwardness, which most of the products don't have. I think if somebody would call you and ask you to do that in your inbox and they wouldn't be superhuman, you just close the phone on them immediately. So branding gives you a lot of power to cheat, but most people don't have it.
Yep. Couple more notes on your landing page teardowns that you did in the beginning of the presentation. There's one trick I love is typically works. Swap your headline and subhead, because you saw this many times. The actual gist of the stuff, the core of it, goes in the subhead, while the headline is kind of inspirational, aspirational.
Yeah. Yes, and it's we've also done that exercise, and it always worked. It's doing that switch is powerful, because people, when they search for you, like, I need Panda, I need a tool for signing documents. They go and search on Google and they say PandaDoc, HelloSign, and all of that. They click on PandaDoc and see, and they need to actually read the whole thing to figure out that you do sign documents. And that's what they're interested. Yes, all the other words are important, because it makes them, yes, I want it simple, or I want it sophisticated, or I want that. I'm going to recognize myself in those words, maybe, but first I need to recognize my problem and those words as a second. If I only see those words, I don't know what is simple, sophisticated about. I need to know what it is about. So yeah.
There is another copywriting piece of advice about things like, simple, sophisticated, quick, robust, whatever. So anything you can't really measure and prove with numbers, you should just drop. And use other means, like you can use design to communicate that it's simple or sophisticated or beautiful, but you don't have to name it. Like, they will see it themselves when they just evaluate the screenshots, and limit the copy to the hard facts and what it does, verb and the noun, as you said.
Yes. If you go to the startups, especially, you can do that with Y Combinator often, because they have all that training, and a lot of the startups in Y Combinator, they have this very crisp and clear heading, because they don't have any branding, they don't have anything to work with. They just need to state clearly what we do. That's one of the secret sauces of Y Combinator, yes.
Was InnerTrends through? Did you go through Y Combinator?
No, we went through 500 startups, which is the Y Combinator 500 startups are always in a awkward competition. We did have common parties, which was very fun. 500 startups would stay in one part, Y Combinator in the other part, we would not mingle. But it was, we went through 500 startups, yeah.
Awesome. And once again, you said, I want to highlight that if you're Dropbox or MailChimp, you can have a completely random messaging. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows what you do. But when we try and look for examples, that's what we look at. The Dropboxes and MailChimps. That's so wrong.
Yes.
They're way beyond us. We shouldn't rip off their homepage. It doesn't make any sense.
No, they can get away with anything. I think Slack at some point had a message that was where work happens. You'd have no idea if a startup puts that heading, and there was no scroll, there was nothing. Where work happens, sign up now. If a startup does that message, you'd be so confused about what is this about? Is this like a metaverse or something? Yeah.
Thanks so much for giving us an insight into user onboarding today. Where can people find more of this online if they want to look for your work?
Definitely. So we are very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So please, let me see. I think I do have. Let me share my screen quickly, because I do have a screen where they can take my details. So you can find my my details where you can simply email me at claudio@tinotrends.com. And I highly recommend everyone to generate their customer journey metrics, because it's a very powerful tool and a starting point for many, many constructive discussions in your companies on what should we build next, what should we focus on, how do we get everyone aligned. So yeah.
Thanks so much once again, Claudio, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Saying bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.